Hello friends, this is Jim here with Science Talk. In this video segment, I want to share with you briefly three studies that have been published that examine how crops are at risk due to the changing climate. Now, I have I have reported and shared with you in previous segments of what's happening to crops and the risk that they're at risk that they're facing. Warmer temperatures reduce yields, reduce quality, and other issues. So this is kind of me continuing to follow these developments and to share the latest research with you guys. So just like before, as the planet warms, there's going to be more challenges to a world that's going to be seeing increasing hunger. Now, the studies I'm going to share with you have identified precise ways that crops, are being put at risk from the changing climate. So, start off with rising temperatures. Explain up to half of all variations in harvest yields worldwide. Increasing, decreasing, depending on the type of plant, what the temperatures are, what its temperature and moisture content requirements are. Remember, if you have a dry area and you warm up the warmer air can hold more moisture, and usually it will suck the moisture out of the ground, making the ground drier, if it's a dry area. And then such areas are now prone to fires, such as what we're seeing in Australia. If you have moist area, well, the air warms up, but the air is moist already. It has a lot of moisture. It can't hold more moisture, so now we're going to have more precipitation than usual. This is why the saying is that dry areas get drier, wet areas become wetter because of what the atmosphere is doing. So what's going on now with the crops as far in terms of temperature? Unusually cold nights, or greater number of extremely hot summer days, long periods of no rainfall, or torrents of storm-driven rainfall precipitation events. These extremes account for somewhere between a fifth to 49% of yield losses for maize, corn, rice, spring wheat, and soybeans. Now, those 20 to 50% of crop failures is these extreme cold, hot, dry, overly abundantly wet conditions. Once international scientists eliminated the effect of temperature averages across the whole growing season, they found that heat waves, drought, torrential precipitation events accounted for 18 to 43% of losses. So now the statistical analyses will allow for the removal of different types of variables. And this is what we do in modeling. We will sit there and say, okay, we got this model. How much of this variable contributes to the observed response? How much of this variable contributes? What's the interaction perhaps contributing, etc. And then we can say this variable contributes 5%. This variable contributes 17%. The interaction of these two variables contributes 29%. You get the idea. We can actually tell you what the contribution of each parameter is to the overall observed effect. Boy, this is fun. In a second study, U.S. researchers have been warning of the Midwest corn farmers too much rain is just as bad as too much heat and long dry spell. We're seeing decreased yield, decreased nutritional values. In a third study, British researchers identified a new climate hazard for one of the tropical world staples. Climate change has heightened the risk of a devastating fungal infection that's already ravaging banana plantations in Latin America and the Caribbean. So we're basically seeing the impact of climate change, caused by humans, We keep burning the damn stuff. More warmth, earlier springs means a longer growing season with lower risk of late frost. A warmer atmosphere can hold more moisture, which means ultimately more rainfall. But, what did I just say a little while ago? If it's a dry area, you're going to suck the moisture out of the ground, and there's still not enough moisture in the atmosphere for precipitation to occur. If you're in a wet area, the atmosphere may not be able to hold any more moisture, or whatever moisture pulls out of the ground goes right back down. And let's not forget the slowing jet streams and the meandering jet stream, more meridional flow instead of zonal flow. So now they park themselves and just keep dumping wet stuff on you. Now this is all nice and, this whole bit, warm, more warmth, earlier spring, that's in theory. But also remember, the atmosphere gets too warm. Many plants don't like it warmer, especially if you're a C3 plant. So let's look at some of these studies now in brief. Okay, Europe, US, Africa researchers have started to measure the cost to the grains, pulses, and tubers that feed 7.7 billion, 7.8 billion people now, and will have to feed at least 9 billion later this century. Okay? Look at my human population carrying capacity video. I discussed those levels. Scientists in Australia, Germany, Spain, Switzerland, and the US report in the journal Environmental Research Letters that they developed a machine learning algorithm to make sense of climate data and harvest data collected worldwide from 1961 to 2008. The aim was to isolate the factors within climate change that might affect harvest on the principle that if the farmers know the hazards, they can prepare. Interestingly, we found that the most important climate factors for yield anomalies were related to temperature, not precipitation, with average growing season temperature and temperature extremes playing a dominant role in predicting crop yield. This statement from Elizabeth Vogel of the University of Melbourne, who led this particular study. This was made apparent when analyzing the maize yield in Africa. Now, Africa's contribution to overall maize production worldwide is small, but still, it's important information that can be gleaned there. Dr. Vogel and her colleagues looked at crop yields, mean seasonal temperatures, extremes, and regions to arrive at their overall conclusions. Impacts of extremes vary according to region, soil type, latitude, and other factors. In a second study, I'm just giving you kind of brief synopses here. U.S. scientists report in the journal Global Change Biology that yield statistics and crop insurance data from 1981 to 2016 on the Midwest maize harvest revealed something slightly different. Some years, excessive rain reduced the corn yields by as much as 34%. Drought and heat could in turn be linked to losses of 37%. Depends on where the crop was grown. As rainfall becomes more extreme, crop insurance needs to evolve to better meet planting challenges faced by farmers. This is a statement from Gary Schnitke of the University of Urbana-Champaign, who's also one of the authors. But if you're going to go from extremes of rainfall, where basically too much rain could rot the seedlings or the plant itself, to drought condition, where the plants just wither, how are you going to plan for that? You can't, these extremes are just happening, and you don't know how long they last. Is this going to be torrential rain for 3 weeks? Is it going to be a heat wave for 4 weeks? It's very, very difficult to plan for that, and this results in, a lot of the crop failures. 34 to 37% is not an insignificant amount of crop loss. And considering, how much corn the U.S. produces in our corn consumption, not to mention biofuels, not only for food. Corn's grown for human food, livestock feed, biofuels. Personally, I don't think it should be used for biofuels. That's another issue. Now for the third one in brief. British scientists report in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society B that changes in temperature and moisture linked to global warming could be deleterious for bananas. The warmer and moisture conditions have increased the risk of infection by the fungus Pseudocercospora fijiensis, sometimes called black sigatoka disease, by more than 44% Latin America and the Caribbean. The disease can reduce yield in infected plants by up to 80%. And a lot of people depend on bananas. Dr. Daniel Beber of the University of Exeter states that climate change has made temperatures better for spore germination and growth and made crop canopies wetter, raising the risk of black sigatoka infection in many banana growing areas of Latin America. While fungus is likely to have been introduced to Honduras on plants imported from Asia for breeding research, our models indicate that climate change over the past 60 years has exacerbated its impact. So the whole notion of, oh, it's warmer, it's better for crops, is bullshit. Plants, like any organism, have preferred temperature requirements as well as moisture requirements. And both of these are being blown out of the water with the changing conditions. That's just a brief synopsis of some of what's happening. And this is worldwide. This is affecting rice in Asia, rice yields in Asia. And I've prepared videos on that in the past. And as I said, warmer areas will get warmer, wetter areas will get wetter. So between what's going on in the ocean with phytoplanktons, where our main source of oxygen is at risk, and now our food supplies is at risk, not exactly a rosy picture, is it? And this also comes down to the fact that there's too many people on the planet. It soon is not going to be able to feed everyone. Sad to say. But this is, we're well above the carrying capacity. Something it was going to give. Thank you for your time. Hey friends, this is Jim reminding you to subscribe and share my videos. Also, don't forget to click the bell so that you know when I drop a video in. And I'm also asking for you to please support the work that I do by becoming a patron at patreon.com. Details in the description box below. Thank you for your continued support.